problem with this is that it puts everyone together into one big block of text, and it doesn't separate it out. So you have no idea. Also, sometimes it'll hear something and think it's music, and that voice will never be transcribed. You'll only have this music symbol in a box at the bottom. So it's not perfect. But I mean, I strapped that right to the speaker of my laptop. It's not even a plugged in speaker. And you saw it can keep up. There are times though that it will just stop listening. It'll call it an automatic voice, and you'll have to refresh it. Not perfect, but it works. And you can get creative with how you set these up so that the machine will do it. With visual, if you're seeing something at a virtual event, you're assuming they all can see, but that's not necessarily true. There are varying degrees of visual perspective. Some people can't see at all. They're blind. Others just need some visual support. Either way, there are options. There are programs that will look at the screen and verbally tell people what it's seeing. If they're blind and need that program, they have it. But you can support that. You can make sure that when you are showing something on a screen, you verbally say, I'm showing this on the screen. So that the screen reader knows to pick that up and verbalize that. You can also make sure that you have PDFs that you post so they can have a reader read to them something that they might have missed that was on a screen, and they can run that through their readers. I have talked with several people who use visual support in the form of a reading app, and they said that Adobe Acrobat Reader is the best one. It's far the most common, and that format can actually be read by 2 or 3 different apps. So I try to put all my stuff into a PDF format that Adobe Acrobat knows. Lastly is mobility. Think about how many times you click the mouse into a Zoom meeting to change classes. Think about some of the classes in A&S that we've virtually taken where they have us clicking and dragging something across the screen. It's easy, but it's not. If you have rheumatoid arthritis, then that kind of hurts. So maybe just slipping into the lobby and just clicking the one time and having your moderators click and drag them to where they need to go, that could be helpful for them. And I've heard people who've said, you can't click that, and they're like, no, can't. And if you have a lot of rooms listed, trying to manipulate your trackball, touchpad, mouse to the one spot is not always easy if you have mobility issues. So think about how many clicks it takes, and if a moderator can help our members who have that perspective, it could be helpful. I have also heard that there are touch screen laptops. If they have one of those, they're not the people we're worried about. But if you have members asking about how to get more accessibility, you could suggest a touch screen laptop. I have had members tell me that they use it and it does help with their mobility issues. Now, technology. As the head unit emissary for SINAGWA, we live stream our transcriptions. Right now, you can go to YouTube, to the Muted Emissary channel, and you could see a live stream of this going. All right, Caitlin, I'm tagging out. So, Caitlin here is going to start signing. And at most of our events, you will go to the YouTube channel and you can see the actual class that I am doing right now. You will see me on that screen. And then you will see Caitlin in a little corner at the bottom, and she will be translating into ASL. And this is how we're able to give real-time ASL support for our visual language members. Nice job. Taking it back. Having a second channel like that for your visual language support gives you a few other options. YouTube is a fantastic resource. Once you get your channel set up for live streaming, you can show any event. If we ever get big enough that we're covering 2 virtual events at the same time, then what we'll do is we'll have another channel added, and we can have both of them running. And YouTube allows for that. A lot of kingdoms have a YouTube server with several channels for that reason. Another important program that we use is called OBS. Now, with this one, we can add visual language support for music. See, in all these apps, remember what I told you at the very beginning? They put this little box at the bottom and it says music, right? Well, for real music, that's what it does. It doesn't tell you what that music is or what it's saying. And imagine now, if I were to start singing, all you would have are those captions down at the bottom. Does that tell you the music? Look at that. Could that be poetry? Not really. You don't know what that is, right? So OBS allows you to show a podcast and then put something on top of it and do something else. Picture in picture. You can add captions. You can add a little picture to the bottom that goes whoa, whoa with the music, so we know when pitch or volume changes. You can add go-to information to be read to people who need visual or processing or some other language support that maybe isn't exactly said or is said fast, whatever. Things that get pinned into the chat box on the side of a class, I usually find does not make a PDF anywhere. So when we post our YouTube channel for the Muted Emissaries, it goes into this chat box that nobody looks at. OBS, you can put that right up front so they can see it. Now, let's talk about breakout rooms, since we're talking about captions, right? Breakout rooms have no captions. Not even in Google Meets, not even in here. It is really hard to get visual support into breakout rooms. Having to do a separate channel is how we got around this problem, because now it doesn't matter. Whatever's on the screen for people to see, that's what gets streamed to the YouTube channel for muted emissaries. Pinning. Pinning is really cool. So if you go to your corner, you can pin any one person to your screen. In this class, I'm assuming it's probably the teacher. So, but if you're like me, it's not. I have a muted emissary pinned to my screen. Katerina takes up the whole thing. Well, what happens when we switch? I have to now go search through 15, 20 other little boxes looking for the other muted emissary who's already started signing. You can kind of move them around, but Google and Zoom both change that as the session continues. As people start piping up or moving around, it'll grab the action. And we'll lose our muted emissaries. With that in mind, it's just something to be aware of. And in breakout rooms, it's harder because you have less access to features in there. Now, we have a symposium coming up in June on the 26th, and we'll be teaching a class in how to use Google Meet and OBS for accessibility. And it's an intro. We assume you've never even heard of these programs. They are both free. Recording in Google Meet is not free, and I did not know that because I have it and I just assumed it was free. So my apologies. But you can record your classes here. But OBS is free, and you can record there too. Last, remember I said at the start, you have to be creative. So when you go looking for programs on how to bridge accessibility gaps, you're using keywords like voice to text. Be careful, don't get a professional program like Dragon, because that's meant for a single user. And it really doesn't like third-party usage either, as in you're trying to get it to transcribe out of a speaker. A lot of the iPhones, the Apple phones, they don't like live transcribe either, and their programs actually cost money, and they're all professional lawyer transcription. It's really hard. I am still searching for an acceptable Apple option, and I will be letting you know when I find it. My sister is an iPhone user, and she has two options. She pays $25 for one of those professional apps, and she has another phone that she takes out to like SCA events or whatever. That's an Android only, no service, and uses it that way. I also highly suggest balloons. Now, here's the cool thing. If you suggest to the people coming to your event to have balloons, it means that you have music. It's how I translate music into something understandable as a deaf person. It also gives texture for our tactile members. My kid has ADD, and he will feel it through the balloon, and it actually gets him involved. It's how he connects to this thing he can't touch. You can take the speaker and hold the balloon up. And the vibrations of the music will go from the speaker into the balloon. And those vibrations will change with pitch, volume, tone of voice. And if it's musical, you can feel the song through it. It's not perfect. It's not as good as being there, feeling it through the grass, but it does connect you to the musical portions. If we're diligent, we'll keep looking until we find a way that connects and includes people in our event. Just got to think about it harder and outside of the box, because everyone else is already in the box. We're trying to get there. Any questions for me? Tell me about your accessibility. Go ahead, Geetha.
A question. I've used Google Sheets to transcribe for the closed captions. So I'd share my screen on Zoom. What do you think of their closed caption?
Fair. It's not their best. Google's Live Transcribe is better. But then again, Google Sheets is not that bad either. It is a usable option. It is understandable. It's not perfect. I'm sure you've seen it. It's Google speak, right? But it is a workable option, and I have not heard of anyone applying it to Zoom like that. Thank you for the idea. I'm going to steal it.
Yeah, because I was doing a Zoom on Sign, and I'm like, I need closed captions, and I don't have Zoom closed captions, so how do I do it? And I had a friend share that Sheets will caption. So I'm like, here, I can share my screen.
That is a wonderful idea. See what I mean about getting creative? Google Sheets is not meant to be a transcription app. That is perfect and exactly my point. No, I love the idea, and it is workable. It is understandable. I hadn't thought about applying it there, but that's a good idea. When you record them, though, I'm not sure they will pop up, so make sure you still get YouTube to caption that. Any other questions or more ideas? Because that's awesome. Going once? Twice? Finny. I'm going to hand it off to my partner teacher, Evelyn.
Hello. I'm going to be talking about hidden exceptionalities, which are not exceptionalities that are not visually seen. For example, autism and fibromyalgia. I'll wait for her to fingerspell that. The key to making things accessible for people with hidden exceptionalities are, one, thinking outside the box, just like Oud said. And they're more accessible than technology. If you plan ahead when you are planning your event and include these items in your event planning, you save half the battle of doing things. For example, there's like the one thing for me, and I have autism, and I also have fibromyalgia, which is why I am talking to you from my bed today, is reducing sensory overload. Virtual events are an ongoing sensory stimulation, and there is very few times where you can have things English, I can do it, I swear. There are few things that you can do to reduce sensory overload. For one, you can have breaks between classes. So when you are scheduling your event, don't do it back to back. At least have a 10 to 15-minute break between each class so that person can just have a moment of quiet. Those moments of quiet let us reset our neural and I don't want to say the word abnormal, atypical neurological sensories. Another one is, I know everybody wants to show off their bling and be visual on the screen, but ironically, the easiest thing to do is to turn off your camera. By having less screens and less people on your screen, it is less sensory overloading. I jokingly call it I focus on the speaker, but I have to see everybody's Oompa Loompas all over the screen. And the Oompa Loompas are overwhelming. And then make sure everybody is muted. If someone is talking, or even if they're picking up a glass and they knock it over, that can set off a person, and I might lose 20 minutes of a lecture coming down from a sensory overload. Another main key to adding accessibility for hidden exceptionalities is to allow options. When you are planning and you get a person with a hidden exceptionality that wants to be a part of your team, there are a few things you can ask them. How do they work best? Do they prefer teams of people or do they prefer to work alone? Do they like to have a team supporting them, or would they rather shoulder the burden by themselves? Do they want to work in the background or do they want to work out in front? For example, do they want to monitor classes or autocrat versus teaching a class? Teaching a class for me is nerve-wracking. It's why Ood took over the main portion of this class, is because I'm dealing with my sensory on top of teaching, on top of having a physical disability and being in pain. So all those things combined make for teaching a class very difficult. Another thing is, do they want to work in large time chunks or do they want to work in small time chunks? Some people want to take the whole time, and some might want to only work for maybe one class. Ask them ahead of time, how do you want to work? And by including them, you make their life a lot easier. Another big thing is to allow flexibility. This will make an autocrat have a nervous breakdown because the day of an event, they are doing multiple things, and having a person with a flexibility takes them out of their control. One thing about flexibility is maybe the person needs a deputy or at least a fallback person in case the day of they can't perform. It also, a deputy gives another person a chance to serve. It it opens it up for other people. And having a small team might be more preferable than to a large team. Having your materials ready ahead of time. By having them ready, if you are having a challenging day and you can't do it, your body's just saying no, you can hand off the work to your deputy and they can pick up the work for you. In for example, day of challenges, the biggest thing people have a problem with is, can I say no on the day of the event and go, I can't do this, and not feel guilty about failing to help in their capacity? It's okay to say no. And we have to mentor them to be able to teach them that saying no is completely okay. And as event staff, you have to take upon yourself to say, I'm sorry, I can't do it. And then the event staff goes, that's okay. Because when things fall apart, the first thing we feel is guilty. We all want to serve, we all want to help. But there comes a time that self care comes before anything else. And hidden exceptionalities are some of the just as, how's the word? Just as difficult to live with as mobility and visual and auditory, but they're not seen. So you don't look like you're have an exceptionality. So people look at you and go, "What do you mean you can't do it? You're look perfectly fine." Well, what they don't know is like the night before, I haven't slept for 2 days. And my body is saying, "You're not moving today." So even sitting in a chair today was not possible. I'm in bed and it's not ideal. I usually dress Elizabethan. I'm in my camp cookout smock today because I can't get into my Elizabethan and perform 100%. It's okay. You're not leaving the event steward in a lurch. If they've prepared, they've already done the largest portion of the class already. Preparation is key to help. Sorry, words, having a hard time today. Um, Give me a second. They're sticking. Um, Preparation is the largest portion of whatever we do. I have my notes right next to me. I'm running off my notes. And it's by having those preparations, you're taking a load off yourself. Hand it to your deputy, hand it to an assistant, maybe to a moderator just to post your notes. You're not leaving the event steward in a lurch. And the event staff has to understand that you have to be flexible with that person, that their exceptionality comes first before the event. And also set your environment. Set your environment for your comfort level. If you have a hidden exceptionality, it's okay to work out of your bed. It's okay to work out of your couch. You don't have to have the backdrop. You don't have to have fancy everything. Sometimes simple is best. And it's very frustrating, by the way, when you're autistic and you're trying to teach a class and the words are sticking. Virtual leaves things open to have some flexibility that at live events don't have. If I have a bad fibromyalgia day at the live event, I'm in my tent and I can't do anything. But a virtual event lets me maybe moderate a class, lets me at least take a class. But live events have so many challenges. Some people might have anxiety disorders, and you have to find a place to calm down. A virtual event, you just don't take the next class. But by having breaks between those classes, that person can have a time to come down, relax, focus, and renew themselves so they can take the next class. Also, hidden exceptionalities when it comes to sensory overload is it's very difficult to have large groups. It's just as difficult in a live event when you go in and there's a group of 20 people. Sometimes you can't handle that. And a virtual event, you have 20 people crammed into one classroom. So sometimes it's best to have a class broken up into 2 classes. Have it over 2 days. If you're expecting a large participation group, by breaking it up, you get a more positive feedback because you're able to ask questions and you're not just one person in the crowd. Um, Another good tip, and I just forgot it. Sorry. um, Another good tip is to have, if you're having a social, which socials are fun, bardics are fun. I personally can't do bardics. Bardics are noisy. Bardics are crowded. People are talking everywhere. And I can't handle it. I check and see if the bardic has a small gathering. If it's a small gathering bardic, I can attend. If it's a large bardic with 30 people, there's no way. That's 30 Oompa Loompas on my screen, and they're singing. And singing off key while you're trying to look at the Oompa Loompas is not fun. Add the fact that I just changed kingdoms, I don't know the songs. So it's not as fun as it could be. But by setting the environment, for instance, maybe making that bardic have breakout rooms, even though the technology isn't there for closed captioning, making a small group, having one musical laurel take over a classroom, and have it a small group. That gives it a chance for those people that have sensory issues to have a chance to communicate and enjoy a bardic, which they normally can't participate in. Now, I've already went through everything in 10 minutes, which is really fast. I babbled. Do you have any questions for me? There is multiple areas of hidden exceptionality. Yes, Blue or Ood.
So when we're looking at the layout, I really noticed how varied the perspectives are. Your perspective has less on the screen, which I need too, but just changing the layout setup gives that to me. Does pinning help you with that at all as an autistic perspective?
Pinning lets me focus on one person, but because I sometimes get so socially overwhelmed, I have to have the muted emissary help me. And so I have to have the muted emissary pinned. So I watch the sign more than I watch the person speaking. So I still have to have the small Oompa Loompas. I can't call them anything else. I don't know what to call them. So they're the Oompa Loompas.
No, that's fair.
Anybody else?
Okay, I figured out where the mute button was. I do have a question, and I wrote it all down, so if I can read it. as we move into the future and we're returning to in-person events, in my area, we have had a lot of people come out of the woodwork and start participating again in virtual events because they are able to. They're not able to get to our in-person events. So as we're moving back towards in-person events and nobody wants to do virtual anymore, everybody wants to be in person, I don't want to leave people behind. And so should we think about continuing to plan events, specific online virtual activities geared for people with different accessibility perspectives? Yes. And then what sort of, double yes. What sort of virtual events allow people with hidden exceptionalities to continue to participate? I appreciated hearing about Bardic and having breakout rooms, having a Laurel take over, but what else? There's more. We'll stop there.
Let me think on that for a second. Another thing would be just maybe breakout room etiquette. I know socials, everybody wants to be seen because it's a social, but sometimes turning off the camera so we can enjoy the music is so much better because we want to sing. Well, hopefully everybody's muted so not everybody is hearing everybody sing, but turn off the cameras and just enjoy having one focus or the focus being the singer, whether it's a Laurel or a person that stands up. The Shire of Southkeep in Trimaris is doing a lighted bardic where you come with a candle, and when you want to sing you light that candle, and they put you in a queue for you to be the singer for that song. And so that way not everybody is cutting people off and making things loud. They know one person is coming up. Okay, Evelyn wants to sing, which I will never do. Trust me, that is not my thing. But I light the candle and I queue up for it. And that way it's just a little bit of a focus so you can be seen and you have your turn. And that can be done both in a live event as well as a virtual event.
On that note, for deaf, having the candle is a good idea too, because visually speaking, having people pop up, even if you're hard of hearing, or if you have social muteness, or some of the other 120 reasons why we use sign language, the talking over, we don't visually see it, we don't know to look, we can't catch it or understand it if we do see it. So that candle is really nice. It's nice. I've also seen people use fake candles so they could pass it around safely. You can get the LED candles from Walmart.
No one's burned their house down yet at Southkeep. So I guess whichever candle they're
Clearly
using.
not at my house.
Anybody else?
I have a second part to add to that.
Okay.
So if we're going to start thinking about offering virtual events for people with different accessibility perspectives, how do we advertise that we're going to do this? And so how do we find that if there is a need for us to do this, how do we find the people that we would serve?
Go for this. You got this, Blue. Ode.
This is my job. So, okay, here's how we do it. Evelyn is really good at posting it on Facebook, and you post, we are looking to add these accessibility services to our menu. Is there a need for it? Who's interested? and give them a PM. Don't make them stand up. We like, as a deaf person, I stand up and I am the center of everything all the time. Like being that token one, you get really sick of it. So give them a PM. Also on the web pages for your kingdom, principality, and your event, you can post it there too. Your DEI or accessibility officer should also have an email that they can send those requests to. Your YouTube channel, if you set one up for live translation of ASL, Muted Emissaries, Silent Heralds, whichever you use, the YouTube channel has a place that you can put at the top, and you can post that YouTube channel too.
Anyone else?
Okay, so it's back to me anyway.
Yep.
We're done? Going on? No? Yeah. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Woohoo! Okay, back to me. Remember at the start of the class, I said I asked you to turn on the captions, and if you could please, like have them on for the class. I want to come back to that now, and I kind of want to discuss. What did you notice? If you had to use that to supplement your communication, what do you notice about the captions?
Sometimes they're wrong, and they're wrong in a bad way.
Yes, that was exactly my point. Yeah, that's a good one, Myra. I don't know if you saw the chat. It said, Google Speak is real. Yeah, no, it's its own language, and it's bad. You really need to think about how you want to record this. If it's going to be recorded, make sure it's not the screen of someone using Google captioning that. Just, it's not going to work. When you look at YouTube and you see it and they pop up, they're blurry and they're still wrong. You can't fix them in there. So when you record, make sure the captions are off. The other problem is when we start to, like jump in on each other, it will cut part of the sentence and take it away. So, and I tried to do that 2 or 3 times so you could see it. So I didn't mean to be rude, and I'm really, really sorry if I was, but I wanted you to see what happens. The machine's not smart enough. So when Bardic, every time. Bardic is verdict every time in Google Speak. You'll see the name Cheney a lot, like Liz Cheney. There it is. Yeah, you'll see that word a lot too. They use it for like baroness sometimes. Oh, you get baroness, but not use. See what I mean? It's impossible. So yeah, I want you to get some experience for it so you know it's not a magic fix. OBS and having someone take the time to type them in is a better option, but that's time and you need a volunteer. So just be aware when you use it, what you're using, and get creative on how you want to expose that. Recording a class and then asking Muted Emissary to put it into ASL after, we do that. That is not a problem. If you want to make sure that it's understandable, you can do that. And you can put it up on any page, anywhere as a YouTube video. So, thank you for taking the time with us here today. Thank you, Evelyn, for sharing with us today. I know normally you would have bowed out like a smart person, but thank you for showing us. It's important for us to see. Because you don't know what questions to ask because you don't know what you don't know. So how can you ask about a perspective that you have never seen and can't formulate something for? So I really appreciate you being brave and strong and showing us so that we can see what we're meeting. It's also why.
And my service dog has decided to join us.
Well, he's cute. He's very cute. But I also want you to see the sign language so you can feel the lag. Did you notice that there were times when we had to wait for Katerina to catch up? Did you notice the difference between how beautiful and nice her sign looks and then you see my PSE and you're like, wow, you communicate with that? I really wanted to show you the differences because all of our people are right here. I am everybody. You are everybody. Each of these different perspectives and how we communicate and show ourselves, they're all unique. And truly, I just wanted you to see some of the differences so you can start to think creatively outside the box about how to meet those differences. You had asked a question, Kungold, about how to advertise who has needs. You can put it up, but use open language like exceptionalities, or some people do prefer special needs. If you have a special need, those are fine. Words to avoid are words like disability. I'm not less than you. I'm not a half-used battery or a CP30 that is not functioning at full capacity. No, everyone's as broken as I am. Mine's just on the outside.
Nothing bothers me more than saying that I'm disabled. I'm not disabled. I live with an exceptionality. And that exceptionality, yes, sometimes runs my life, but other times doesn't. So I prefer exceptionality. And I find it more positive instead of not a negative connotation.
Yeah, dis means without ability. I raised my kids. I clean my own house. I work for a living. There's nothing you do that I don't. I will grab my guitar and play for you right now. I play recorder too. I speak 4 languages. There is nothing that anybody else can do that I can't. Doesn't exist. So yeah, wordage. The only thing you really have to think about when you're asking for who has special needs that I need to meet, it's just your wordage. Make sure it's open and accepting and doesn't, it's not negative. It does. Go ahead, Katerina.
I would like to add, I know I'm here as a muted on this area, but I wanted to add, don't use hearing impaired.
Oh, yeah, no. Oh, thank you so much.
That's a bad word.
That's a naughty word. We don't use that. That's like a 4-letter word.
Yeah. It means that being impaired, how do you explain this?
You're broken?
Yeah, you're broken and you need to be fixed. It's not even that you don't have it. It's that you're not good enough. That you had it, you broke it, you didn't take care of it. Like, you're hearing impaired. I mean, how would you if somebody told you were singing impaired? Well, what if you like singing? Who says you have to be Madonna? Right? If you want to sing campfire songs and it's not what other people would pay to hear, it doesn't matter. You still enjoy it. It's still a part of your life. No one has the right to judge that. Yeah, hearing impaired is terrible. Hard of hearing. Hard of hearing. Their hearing, it's hard for them to do. You're just being very clear about the level of the physical ability they have. And you can refer to what they can do. It's when you label with what they can't that it's not okay. Does that make sense? Okay. Thank you for pointing that out. That was a good one. I can't believe I missed that. Oh, I hate that word. Okay, anything else? Because this is the last question before we end the class. Do you have comments, feedback?
How was the class?
Yeah. Oh, thanks.
It was a wonderful class, and one thing I definitely learned from our meeting to plan this class and this one was language, and language is important. So I've adopted different accessibility perspectives, which that this makes sense, where it's not, there aren't people with disabilities, we just have different accessibility perspectives. And so you are like me, you just have a different perspective. I think it just makes sense. So I appreciate the language that I'm learning. And then also exceptionalities. So thank you. Thank you.
And I learned a sign.
I love that word too.
I taught it to Oud today because that's what I was taught when I went to school. Was exceptionalities, not disabilities.
Yeah, I like exceptionalities. I think that really fits the bill perfectly.
I do have one more question. I'm sorry if I make you run over. We're pushing into a lot of visually heavy media like Instagram. And how do are things like the alt text? Those things are important. And making sure that e-readers can read those. Do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, that is a really good point. And I had meant to talk about that and I forgot. I'm so sorry. No, you're right. When you make your memes and your other stuff for e-readers, they need whole words. So the text speak is really hard. If you're going to put an announcement for an event, you need to type that out. E-readers for Instagram, they have a really small attention span. So you can't babble in there. You need to be succinct and clear with your points. Periods will always stop the computer. So if you're going to type more than one sentence, make sure you need to, because that abrupt on the reader, it like blocks out the first syllable of the next word. So few sentences, whole words. If you're going to have a visual, like a picture, make sure it's clear. If you put your words on top of it, don't have it be a watermark. Have it be a real picture, like a duck. Don't have it be busy. Keep it simple, because the e-reader has to identify it and then let them know. So like a single device, that's usually okay, but they'll all be called a shield. Does that make sense? So if you have a picture with 15, 20 people at an event in it, it's just going to say group of people. It's not going to actually tell them what it is. So keep your picture simple, few sentences, whole words. Good questions. I like it. Anyone else? That is one. Two. 3. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate the good words, the good questions. You guys rock. I love you guys.
Thank you.
All right, we are done. Go ahead and stop it.